the news, Ayush. Since when do we do scripts? Fair point. Picture this. The biggest stage. Floodlights. Wow. 4K. The works. Where's the hook? There's going to be celebrities and guaranteed eyeballs. Where's the hook?
All right, welcome back. Manish Sonthalia, Director and Chief Investment Officer, Emkay Investment Manager, is joining us this morning on India Market Open. Manish, always a pleasure to have you on. Right now, once it seems like the worst is over, the euphoria one would...
Climbed the wall of worry as far as the Middle Eastern crisis is concerned. Things are behind us. I don't see any reason to be bearish. Of course, over a period of time, we'll be headed higher from current levels. This is what I believe.
Okay, so where is that growth going to come from? That recovery which you say will come slowly because the good news gets priced in slowly. Where do you think that's coming in from?
A host and plethora of sectors, Tamanna. Basically, this whole Middle Eastern crisis has exposed energy transition globally. So this is one of the most common themes across the globe. So anything to do with energy transition, solar, renewable, transmission, electric vehicles, batteries, pump hydro. These are the areas which are in focus. Second biggest area is basically defense or advanced manufacturing, medical, semiconductor, defense manufacturing, aerospace manufacturing. These are newer areas where a lot of focus, a lot of initial capital is getting sunk into, not yet fully priced in vis-a-vis the growth for the next 5 to 6 years. So this is another area. Third would be data center ancillary, basically your AI thematic play. India is late in the curve, and again, for the next 4 to 5 years, you got to find your picks. Near-term valuations are very, very pricey. Then you have the auto ancillaries, which is particularly doing quite well. You have the healthcare sectors, hospitals, whole lot of sectors. The only worrisome point is that the mainstream sectors, which is getting not the valuations or the banking space, the large banks or the IT, they are slightly headwinded. So I would believe the action is more outside the index, Nifty 50 or Sensex. But there's a whole lot of bullishness across sectors in India, but mostly outside the index.
So, sorry, you said, Manish, sorry, just so that I don't get it wrong, did you say mostly outside India?
Outside index.
Outside index, yeah, which is fine. I mean, we've been talking about how the trade may not be in the Nifty, but beyond the Nifty, right? I mean, maybe we'll have many more indices, Nifty, next 50, then Nifty 101 to 150, and then more and more, maybe more and more people can trade. But just those things too. But you spoke about a plethora of sectors, Manish. Just want to understand as a primary divide, because the currency, despite, I mean, we have macro stability now, but the currency is at about 94, maybe it strengthens to 93 or thereabouts. But a big benefit for exporters versus what the currency would have been at 85 or 86 or 87, what have you, right? Are exporters, whether it's textiles, auto anchs or some others, a good large position to have in the portfolios or not quite?
The two areas of right to win for India is basically textiles and auto anchs. They are the factories of the world. And now with FTAs, European FTA around the corner within the next 2-3 quarters, British FTA, getting operationalized from 15th of July. I mean, cotton prices today are lower than what they were last year. Yarn spreads from from 75 cents has now moved up to $1. So textiles is in a sweet spot. Auto anchs in any case were doing well, both the ICE as well as your batteries, the EV portion. Aerospace, another area of defense, from build to print, from moving away from build to print to build to manufacture. Again, a whole lot of names out here which are doing quite well. So, India's got the breathing space till 30th of September, because of the RBI initiatives, $50 to $70 billion. 93 to 94 is a stable level. Nowhere is the fear that the currency is going to breach $100. That was the biggest fear in the minds of everybody. The macro conditions would have looked very, very vulnerable at 100. That's not happening at least till about 30th of September. That's a breathing time. FII flows, outflows have abated. And I think these are all positives. I even hear that FIIs are starting to turn very positive in India. From the next 2 years perspective, maybe the aggressive selling has broadly been done. So we'll wait and watch. But yeah, these are some of the positives currently.
Okay. And Manish, just wondering, because you said the right to it is in textiles and auto anks, textiles to some extent have made a first move, right? I don't know if it's the first full move, but there is definitely a move that has happened. Are there still attractively valued textile opportunities from a couple of years perspective?
100%. The advantage that India gets over Bangladesh, 12% duty differential, and the large addressable market in the US, of course, that will be known after the trade deal gets signed, the final trade deal gets signed with the US. But Europe and the British one is almost broadly done. The 12% duty disadvantage that India had over these years, is no longer going to be the case. And India is very competitive in textiles. And I believe valuations are still very, very sanguine. You haven't priced in the growth from the next 2 to 3 years perspective. So a great sector to be invested in current times. Early mover advantage would be there. But yeah, that is how I feel from the next 2 to 3 years, still a lot of money to be made.
Okay. Manish, one trend that is being seen is any company in Indian markets as well and in the broader indices that has anything to do with an AI data center play, even obscurely, is seeing huge investor appetite. I mean, I don't want to name it, but there is a company which has announced that it is contemplating a deal with a large global player, contemplating a deal. And that stock is on fire. Do you think that hunger and that appetite needs to be looked at with a little skepticism, or are you also on the hunt for such plays?
No. All these narratives have to be looked at with deeply under a microscope. Anything and everything. We have gone through these global financial crises and a whole lot of euphoria, narrative-driven trades. That's not going to be, fruitful in the long term. Fundamentals need to be addressed. Valuations need to be addressed. So yes, the data center ancillary plays are for real. AI investments are going to happen from 1.5 gigawatts to around 5 to 6 gigawatts. But India doesn't have a play in either the chips or the memory. But anything other than that, whether it's chillers or optic fibers, these are for real. You have very few plays. But these the guys who have seen a lot of years under these businesses are going to be for new businesses without too much of fundamentals to back. I mean, I would look at those with skepticism. Yes, the space is very promising, but one needs to inspect and look at these companies very minutely.
Okay. In terms of where those opportunities lie, because, it's all talked about in vague terms, Manish, the plumbing around data centers, the power, generators for data centers, cooling solutions for data centers. But what have you spotted? I mean, I'm not asking you for stock names, but are there real cogent stories out there that you've seen?
Yeah, so, the 50% is chips, 30% is memory. We don't have these plays. 20% is everything outside them. So networking, chilling, cooling, plumbing, standby power, engines, catering to that power. These are all very real. From the demand perspective, you have many companies, catering to these, or let's say the energy itself, because AI is nothing but a play on energy tokenization. So energy itself, whether it be solar, renewables, etc., these are all AI plays, but one needs to carefully analyze the growth, the valuations.
Okay. Manish, you've not shied away from making bets on really small names in your portfolio as well, right? For the longest time, you said that small is beautiful, you're getting ideas there, be it capital markets, etc. Which brings me to my question around the smaller capital market players, be it, and they are in the listed space, but be it small distributors, be it small brokers, be it maybe smaller AMCs, though none of them are listed right now, but maybe at some point of time they will. Would you bet on some of these niche plays in the capital market space if the valuations are right, considering that now direct market access is possible even for retail and not just institutions, if you will, and therefore ultra HNIs come in, so that may impact some of the smaller brokers, etc., etc. Do you like some of the smaller capital market plays?
Absolutely. I think intermediation is a fabulous business, and all the capital market plays are basically a play on intermediation. And the TAM is going to be very big going into the next 5-10 years. Of course, one needs to bet on what's the right to win in each of these smaller companies. It's not that everyone is going to be successful. Somebody has something unique. Even though they are small, they have a unique positioning. Maybe those are the names which are going to get very bigger. And the capital intensity in the business is just not there. So, currently in the overall scheme of things, too small and AMCs have still a long way to go on the upside. But I say mid-sized AMCs would have a right to win. So, because performance draws AUM and you get rewarded on AUM in terms of your fees. So mid-size, when they are mid and they are on their way to become large, these are the areas to bet on as far as the AMC is concerned. Distribution, wealth management is a fabulous business. The right to win is now established firmly with the Indian guys. All the foreign wealth management guys have left. So people who have stayed all along and those who are building their business brick by brick, because it's not a very capital intensive business. One who stays on the curve, on the growth, because penetration of equities in India is still a long way to go. And we are nowhere close to where developed markets or even Southeast Asian countries are there. And again, it's an intermediation business, great businesses, high ROEs, great payouts. So yeah, these are some of the plays where I would bet on. Of course, broking, platformized broking, digital, these are again, less capital intensive business, whole lot of free cash flows. When India moves from 4 trillion to 30 trillion in the next 25 years, these will be very large plays. And again, the number of PAN accounts and the number of broking accounts, 75 crore PAN accounts, maybe 9 to 10 crore, broking accounts, still a long way to go. So yeah, these are some of the plays where I think still a long way to go.
What about exchanges? Since you spoke about that whole capital markets play, there's a mega IPO around the corner. How are you feeling about exchanges?
So basically it's a 10 to 15% growth till perpetuity. Apply the formula. I would believe a 50p. That year's earnings is part of the course, whether it is NSE, whether it is BSE. The other ones, the Metropolitan Stock Exchange or NCDX, still have to prove themselves. MSCI is 1,000 crores market cap. Is there a place for a third exchange? Maybe yes. When the size of the opportunity, they would not like a duopoly to exist. Maybe a 3-player industry is not bad for a place like India. So that's an option value, but clearly, exchanges will be great money makers for the long term. You don't know what's going to be in place for NSE in the short term, but definitely in the long term, you're going to make money.
Okay. And, the other theme that seems to be picking up, where there's more excitement than your traditional banking, financials and IT, is industrials. Everyone's talking about industrials, the hardcore infra plays. Is that something that excites you?
Yeah, 100%. So, the amount of investment outlays that are being undertaken by government of India as well as the private entities, the green shoots probably have not disappointed. As far as the private capex is concerned, it's only going to pick up. So one needs to be wary about valuations and where their niches, generalized infra players will not gain. But anything to do with power transmission, etc., would be clearly, favorites, or let's say buildings, infra, renewables, transmission, distribution. These are areas with interest.
Thank you so much, Manish, for speaking with us today. Always a pleasure. A wide variety of sectors that Manish Sonthalia spoke about. I think one that stands out is be cautious about narrative push around everyone and everything that's talking about AI and data center.
Yeah, just so that we are clear, viewers, we are